Now say this out loud as you're driving around in your car.
Join Sports Skillet.
Just what it feels like.
So how do you like it?
So what is it? I'm curious.
You like it like this?
My God, do we love football.
Or like this?
I love the sport of baseball.
And what about this?
You can have a sports show without all the vicious talk.
Simple human decency.
Whatever it is that you like.
Yeah, I like chaos.
We've got it covered.
Right?
It's sports the way you like it.
My friends, you may not know this. It's got everything you want.
Local and national sports talk that's fresh, in season, and FDA approved. If it's hot, you'll find it cooking with Jeff, Jay, and Kelly. They don't just stir the pot, they add more flavor than the other guys. Get ready to dig in and taste some Sports Skillet.
Tastes good.
Right now.
And welcome everyone to the weekly edition of the Sports Skillet live stream emanating from the CSB studios in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I am Jay, and as always, we're going to bring into the conversation Ken Moskowitz. Ken, can you tell everybody how they can find you on social media?
Absolutely, and good afternoon to you, Jay, and good afternoon, family. Absolutely, on Facebook at Ken Moskowitz, parenthesis crossing guard Ken, and on both Twitter and Instagram, Skywarn Spotter Ken.
Awesome. And Ken, lots of sports to dissect and go over. I think the biggest news right now is the Eagles signing Carson Wentz to a long-term deal that will keep him an Eagle for a while.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, the breakdown of this is $128 million 4-year extension that runs through 2024. And here's the more the better part of this. $107.9 million of it guaranteed. Now, if you ask me, I think that's a big motivator for Carson. This is a big motivator for him because now it's pretty much he's pretty much saying, look, this is what I loan for now. Okay.
Yep.
I have to stay healthy. I have to bring my A plus game to my team, to all the lines. Okay, all the offensive lines. They're expecting a lot of me, and I need to stay. And the most important thing, I need to stay healthy. So I believe the guaranteed money alone, I believe, Jay, is a big motivator for him.
Oh, I think so too. And you look at it, I think Howie Roseman was very smart in signing Carson Wentz, because you look at some of the contracts that are going to be coming up in the NFL. You're going to have Dak Prescott coming up within the division, right? Howie Roseman got out in front of everything. He got out in front of Carson Wentz possibly having an MVP type season, leading the Eagles deep into the playoffs. And then how much would he have to have paid Carson Wentz after all that? Now he gets out in front of this. He pays Carson Wentz before this season. And yes, it was a risk on his part too, because what happens if Carson Wentz gets hurt and goes out for the season again? But Carson Wentz is the Eagles franchise quarterback. So he's getting out in front of this. And now he's kind of shifting the knife a little bit into the Dallas Cowboys, because how much money is Dak Prescott going to ask of the Dallas Cowboys? He's going to start off around the area where Carson Wentz is. And now the Cowboys having all these other contracts on the books, are they going to be able to meet Dak Prescott's demands? And if they do, because, hey, if not Dak, then who? Now all of a sudden they're going to have to cut some players loose.
Yeah. I mean, And like you say too, the starting gauge will be in this case, if I'm doing my math correctly, in the area of 32 million. So I mean, so Dak, if you ask me, has got to show his A game as well there in Big D, and prove to his teammates that look, if Carson's worth this much, okay. Yes, we have to go through a good chunk of the 2019 campaign to get even a better gauge on both CJ and Dak. But at least I would say probably 8 or 9 games, give or take 8 or 9 games. Let's see where both of them are at. I think that Dak, I could see the smarts of Dak saying, "Look, let's go through a good chunk of the season, okay? See where we're at. Let me give Dallas my A game as well, and I'm sure if they're both running parallel with each other, both Dak and Carson, as far as numbers and perhaps win totals for that matter go." Yeah, I could probably see Dallas giving Dak an extension as well, but I think they're probably. I'd like to say they're going to wait until week 8, week 9, see where things lie.
I completely agree with you there. Also, it didn't take too long for DeMarcus Lawrence to get into the conversation about Carson Wentz's contract extension. Last night,
I laughed at that tweet as well. Oh Lord!
He sends out a tweet shortly after the Carson Wentz contract was announced. The richer they get, the better it feels. When we humble, they ASS. When they humble, they ass. So, so now it feels like, okay, now all of a sudden the Eagles-Cowboys rivalry is starting to pick up a little bit.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I see it getting quite interesting, once we meet.
Oh, I think so too. And of course, DeMarcus Lawrence being a defensive end, he's going to go out there and try to sack Carson. Carson's going to try to avoid him, get rid of the ball, before DeMarcus Lawrence can get to him. And maybe it's DeMarcus Lawrence. Be careful what you put out on Twitter, because I can see that tweet this season. If DeMarcus Lawrence has a bad game against the Eagles, I can see that tweet being brought up to not only DeMarcus Lawrence, but to all the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, social media could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon who it is and what it's about.
Oh, yeah, especially in this rivalry where the Eagle fans are chomping at the bit to get back at the Dallas Cowboys, use anything they can against the Dallas Cowboys. And that tweet, I think, is going to be there when the Eagles and Cowboys meet. And like I said, if Carson Wentz has a huge game against the Cowboys, that tweet from yesterday is going to be all over social media again.
You know it. You know it.
But, yeah, it is. I think it is a really good thing for the Eagles to get Carson Wentz extended. Now, what that also gives the Eagles is a baseline. It allows the Eagles to know, okay, we've got Carson Wentz signed for the next few seasons. Done, delivered, the massive contract has dropped. Now we can go about constructing the roster and filling out any hole that we perceive that that the Eagles may have. So that gives the Eagles now some cost certainty going forward too.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Which I also really like too. Just getting the Eagles in there and getting that cost certainty and getting that contract done. And here's the other thing. Field Yates tweeted this out. Eagles veteran players now signed for at least 3 more seasons. Carson Wentz, tight end Zach Ertz, defensive tackle Fletcher Cox, center Jason Kelsey, offensive tackle Lane Johnson, defensive end Brandon Graham, wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey, defensive tackle Malik Jackson, wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, linebacker Nigel Bradham, and guard Isaac Seumalo. All those guys are now under contract for at least 3 more seasons. That's a pretty stacked lineup.
Absolutely. I would have to say, and go on a limb and say that probably is the stacked lineup in all of the NFL right now. I mean, I see this team being primed and ready. And let's not forget, there's one name that's out there too that is I know looking for an extension as well. For a new type of contract. I think I can't see him quibbling, at dollar amounts because of the fact that he has made mention that he loves this team very much and wants to come back, and that's Malcolm Jenkins.
Yep.
I can't see him arguing over dollars and cents.
I agree with you. I think Malcolm Jenkins is underpaid, so I think he's right to want a new deal. Now that they have cost certainty with Carson Wentz, like I just said, I think now they can go to Malcolm Jenkins and figure out a contract with Malcolm and get him back and happy and content and ready to go for the regular season now that they have this cost certainty with Carson.
Right. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And, and I could see them, maybe not. Well, it depends. It depends on how you look at it, because there have been different, reports that, yes, he sat out of the OTAs. Okay. So, but I'm sure he's working out. So the OTAs is nothing. The mini camp, he may attend, half of the practices. Again, that may not be anything as well. I think what's going to come down to, too, that probably at the start of training camp, that it's going to be more of a talked about thing, as far as Malcolm and the possible extension / contract goes. The question is going to be, will they get a deal now that Carson is locked up for at least the better part of the next 4 to 6 years? The question is going to be, will they get a deal done with Malcolm now, or will they get it done perhaps at some point during training camp? Because now, mind you, let's hope that he attends day one to the last day of training camp, mind you, but let's hope it at least starts off attending day one. If we see him at day one without a contract, okay, then my belief is money is not an issue too much. But if we don't see him in training camp day one, there's things that have to fly up in the air a little bit. Is it a money issue? Which you and I both think overall and especially with the Philadelphia Eagles, money should not be an issue at all. But because of how he can work his magic in that.
Yep.
But, of course, at the end of the day, obviously, as of right now, it remains to be seen. So, I guess the Father Time is the only one who could tell us all, of Eagle Nation as to, when Malcolm and the organization, will come to an agreement,
Yep.
and which day. So
yeah, I think they will work it out. I think Malcolm Jenkins likes being a Philadelphia Eagle. The Eagles obviously need his veteran presence in the locker room, having lost Chris Long this offseason. So they need that veteran guy on defense that players can turn to and talk to and is that leader, because that was Chris Long. Now with Chris Long retiring and being gone from the locker room, now it turns to Malcolm Jenkins to be that leader. So I got to believe that the two sides will eventually come together, work out a new deal, because Malcolm is underpaid for what he brings to the Eagles, not missing any games, playing on special teams, being that leader, making plays.
Couldn't agree more.
You know, so I do think they will come to an agreement. It may take a little bit. He may have to sit out a little bit of training camp or OTAs to get his point across that, hey, you paid Carson, you paid some of the other guys. Now it's my turn. I've earned it, which he has. I don't blame him for being a little bit upset over his contract, being underpaid. So I think they will come to an agreement. Now, when you talk about money, it seems that the New York Jets are screwing this thing up with Joe Douglas. You know, some of the tweets that have come out over the past day or so with Joe Douglas not becoming the Jets general manager, not agreeing to a contract because of money. How can you do that if you're the New York Jets?
My first little inkling, if you will, is someone by the name of Adam Gase. Now, mind you, we know he's got one job to do, more or less, at least overall as of right now, and that's being the head coach, making sure his players are ready for their mini camp at Florham Park, and getting them, and leading up to their training camp, and then of course leading into the preseason to see where the pieces are where they're finally going to fall into place, and who makes the team and obviously who doesn't. If I were Jets, I'll tell you, on the Jet, from a Jet fan standpoint, overall, okay. And I know we're discussing Joe Douglas, but as far as Adam Gase goes, if I were from a Jet standpoint, a fan standpoint, I really honestly would have to be a bit skeptical, yet I have to be a little worried. Why I say worried is because we all know what happened in Philadelphia a couple years ago, quite a few years back with Chip Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean,
yep.
Jeffrey Lurie, who went on record recent and mentioned that, of course he regretted letting Chip have full reign of, not only being the head coach, but also reign of the, player control, from a GM standpoint, or from a part GM standpoint in this case. We all know what happened there. The team, he just literally blew the team apart. And that's where I think, if the Jet organization, Chris Johnson and company, if they can't see, hopefully they see what's going on and have a bit of a stronghold on it. If they don't, and if this thing starts to literally unravel by the seams, the Jets organization and the fans are going to go through what the Eagles unfortunately went through a couple years ago, and that will not be a good thing at all.
And how can you live with yourself if you're a Jets fan? I would be absolutely livid if I had access to one of the best front office guys in the NFL, and the reason that we didn't secure him is because the Jets went cheap in terms of money, because there is no salary cap when it comes to front office personnel, scouts, managers, vice presidents, whatever. There is no salary cap in front office personnel. And if the Jets are going to go cheap with Joe Douglas, be it in terms of years, be it in terms of average annual value, be it in terms of the overall value of the contract, year to year, whatever it is, if the Jets are going to go cheap with Joe Douglas and they had the opportunity to secure him and he was willing to go, I would be absolutely livid with that organization, that owner, that management. You know, whether it's because Adam Gase was unwilling to give up control of the 53-man roster, or the terms of the years and the money, and he was willing to come and say, you know what, I just want control. It's my job on the line. You guys have fired general managers often. You know, the stability in the Jets organization is almost non-existent. They'll fire a GM, they'll fire a head coach. There's not a lot of stability there. So if I was Joe Douglas, I would have every inkling. I would be forthright in saying, I want to know that my job is safe. So I want you to pay me X amount of dollars for X amount of years, and I want control of the roster, because if this thing goes south because of Adam Gase, who got fired from Miami, if this thing goes south, I want to be the one making the roster decisions. I want it on my back. I want to be making the decisions. And if the Jets can't secure Joe Douglas because of that, because it won't give him the control, the money, the years, the power, you know, I mean, I'm thrilled. Being an Eagles fan, I'm thrilled. I'm ecstatic.
Absolutely.
I don't want Joe Douglas going anywhere. So I'm thrilled that the Jets are going to be that stupid in order to do that moronic, that idiotic. I'm thrilled because of that, being an Eagles fan. But if you're a Jets fan and they go in a different direction and they could have had Joe Douglas, oh my God, I would be absolutely livid.
Yeah. I echo what you just said there too. I mean, how could you be a Jet fan and you know, again, how could you be a Jet fan and not know what's going on, number one, but also too, how can you not be frustrated at the point where, okay, Joe Douglas had a second interview. Well, all right, it came down to money issues. Why not just push it? Give him that $1 million or $1.5 million and say, look, here you go. We want to welcome you in. I mean, but I too am happy. Am happy that, Douglas will end up staying with the Eagles.
It looks like it. I mean, I don't know. The Jets could still come to their senses. I mean, they haven't named the GM yet. So there's still the possibility that the Jets could come to their senses and sign Joe Douglas, agree to all his terms, and make him their new GM, because they haven't named anybody yet. So there's still that he's still lingering out there. But
me personally, I think Champ Kelly might be the odds-on favorite, being that being with the news floating around that Douglas most likely may stay with the Eagles. I mean, I think my belief is I think Joe Douglas is going to remain part of the Philadelphia Eagle organization, and I do think the Bears Champ Kelly, I think, is going to end up landing in New York. I think
that could be. Like I said, I just can't believe that the Jets wouldn't agree to Joe Douglas' demands and just hire him. And the thing from Joe Douglas' standpoint too, if I'm Joe Douglas, I may be seriously taking my name out of the equation at this point. People say that, and I've heard this on some other shows and social media, that these GM jobs don't open up that often, and maybe you should take it when it's offered to you. I disagree with that. I think the GM jobs open up maybe not as often as a head coaching job, but they do open up. And if I'm Joe Douglas, my name is now out there as a front runner for any GM opening. I'm going to get other interviews, possibly with other teams. Maybe even up in New York, maybe with the Giants, because if this thing goes south with Dave Gettleman and the quarterback up there doesn't work out, then all of a sudden Gettleman could be out of a job. And I'll tell you what, the Giants don't like firing head coaches or GMs, so that could be a really sweet opening. And there's going to be other openings for Joe Douglas down the line with more stable organizations than that of the New York Jets, where they will come after him and come after him hard and agree to his terms in power, money, years, etc. They'll agree to it just to get him onto their team, into their building, and working on their team. So he's going to have other opportunities. People who say that.
Not only will he have other opportunities, I can definitely, no doubt, see him being a future general manager.
Yep. Oh, he will be. He will be.
Just going to be the question will be where.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if he accepts the Jets job, if the Jets, like you said, come to their senses and say, look, you know what? It might have came down to a money issue. Let's give you the money, and let's get you in here and get this thing going, or maybe in the next 4 years or 5 years down the line, I could what could be 5 years or less, I think, because I mean he's obviously you and I both know he's learned from the best in Howie Roseman, the right hand man especially when it comes to the draft. So I mean, you got a real good asset that could be in line or that will be in line, I should say, for a general manager's position. It's just a matter of when and where.
Completely agree with you, Ken. Well, let's switch over to the Philadelphia Phillies. Yesterday, Thursday, they honored Dave Montgomery, former owner, in a very nice ceremony. You had alumni there. Jimmy Rollins gave a very nice speech. Very good ceremony to honor a great guy in David Montgomery.
Yeah, and a great guy he was too. He obviously, was basically the one who initiated these players, no matter from past to present, no matter who they are. You not only do you perform for this organization on the field, but you need to show your community service off the field as well. He set the goal, the standard. He set the bar high for that, and a successful and very successful he was in doing that. I mean, what can I say? A Phillies fan from way back, obviously. From what I've read in quite a few different articles and stories about him, attended just about every game at Connie Mack Stadium, and getting to know, not a matter of getting to know the player's name, but he wanted to know who the fans were. He wanted to know each of their names. He wanted to even know the janitor's name at the Veterans Stadium. And
exactly.
Say, look, hey, how are you? Is anything I could do for you? You let me know. What a guy! What a guy! And Dave will honestly be missed dearly in the world of baseball. Many friends, many colleagues, they adored, treasured him. And, will go on living, go on forever, thinking about the good stuff. And it was a big loss in the world of sports.
Oh, absolutely. And let's turn to some on the field stuff. The Phillies are continuing to excise their. I guess he's still a current center fielder, but they're excising anything to do with Odubel Herrera. They took down what may have been the last banner up around the stadium, replaced it with an Aaron Nola banner. So it looks like Odubel Herrera is going to be gone from the Philadelphia Phillies once his suspension is over.
Yeah. From what I understand, they're awaiting. The Phillies organization obviously is awaiting the arraignment on June 17th in Atlantic County. So they're waiting to see what the end result is. I could tell you right now, from the taking the batters down. I mean, taking the batters down alone, I think that gives you a pretty honest to goodness clue as to what the end result will be. I think for Herrera, and I think me personally, I think they made their decision already just by the way they took him down, and it doesn't look good. It to me, it just does not. It doesn't bode well for Herrera. And furthermore, if the Phillies cut him loose, I mean, look, does he have the talent? Absolutely. It's not over the moon talent, but there's talent to be had. The question is going to be, though, will any of these, any of these other teams in baseball, if that does come to pass, which by the percentages, it looks like it may very well, but who knows? But if it comes to pass, will these other teams perhaps jump on the wagon and say, look, you know what? We have an opening here. We can use you at least off the bench, if not possibly in center field. But more importantly, though, not a matter of the talent portion of it, but the professional side of it too. As far as the gentleman qualities, putting on the gold standard of being a professional. Will these teams think that he's got that? I think with this happening, I think he put himself in a pretty bit of a predicament as far as what his future may or may not hold.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's going to get the heavy suspension handed down from Major League Baseball. Is probably going to be somewhere around at least 40 games. That's about what Addison Russell got with the Chicago Cubs. But there's still going to be a little bit of the season left, I think, once Odubel gets done that suspension. So then the question is, do the Phillies just outright release him? Or do they try to get something, anything, a bag of balls, a low minor leaguer somewhere, in Class A, for Odubel, because his trade value at that point is going to be next to nothing. And the fact that they've excised everything, just anything to do with Odubel Herrera has been removed from inside and outside of Citizens Bank Park. That tells you what ownership and the general manager and the manager think of Odubel Herrera right now, that he is not coming back. Because if there was any little remote, just any way they were going to try and spin this to get Odubel back on the field, they would have left those banners up. They would not have excised him from the team. But the fact that they've absolutely used Clorox and just bleached everything and removed all the banners, anything with Odubel Herrera's name on it or face or likeness or whatever the case may be, just removed everything, tells you that he is not going to play another game for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, no.
He is not. But
I don't see it happening either.
But then we turn to, okay, he's not going to play another game for the Philadelphia Phillies. So now we turn to the on the field things. So who is going to play in the outfield for the Philadelphia Phillies? Well, we got Jay Bruce, who's going to be playing left field. We've got Adam Hazley, who came up a few days ago, got his first major league hit, and what a hit it was. Double, scoring a key double, getting an RBI out of it as well. You got Scott Kingery, and then eventually you'll have Roman Quinn coming back. So, do you think the Phillies have enough there to get by with what they got, or do you think the Phillies between now and the end of July will go out and add another outfielder?
Well, I think they can get by. I think they can get by at least as of right now. I mean, let's take it at least a portion of the season at a time. In my opinion, I think they can get by with who they have now, barring any other injuries.
Yep.
Lord help us all. But I do think as well, Jay. I think they will go out. They're going to do some searching around to see, who. As far as I think on the idea of pitching. I mean, now here we have Dallas Keuchel, who I believe is on the periphery of agreeing to a deal with Atlanta.
Already agreed to, just has to take a physical.
Okay, well, there you go. And as far as closers go, Craig Kimbrell, we know, had signed with the Chicago Cubs. So, yep. I mean, as far as Gabe Kapler, I think goes, I think if Gabe needs to. I still believe that. I think Gabe needs to sit down with Vinny Velasquez and try to convince him. Say, look, you know what? We're in a situational game in the bottom, and like near the bottom of the eighth. To sit down with him while we're up the bat and say, look, you know what? I want to throw you out there in the ninth inning. If we're up 3-1 in the ninth, going into the ninth inning, I need you to see what you can do to close this game out. And if you can close this game out, I believe you will be our closer for sure. Because I still have I have a lot of faith. I still think in Velasquez being our closer. I mean, I can't say enough. I really honestly can't say enough about that. I mean, look, Hector Neris, yeah, I mean, if he had a little bit, if he were out there on the mound and be a little bit more on the calmer side, and just focus, okay, as opposed to throwing just the ball down the middle and boom, there you go. Neris, I believe, would be our closer. I just can't, right now with it being a so-called bullpen by committee right now, the games, the more games that, unfortunately would be lost, the more that, the season's going to just go kaput. And we don't want to see that. I think Gabe, again, all else fails, it can't happen. But I think he needs to sit down with Vinny and say, look, here's our deal. In one of these, in a situational game, whether it's at the bank or away, and say, look, here's the deal. We're in this spot. And we go into the ninth inning at the same spot. I need you to go out there. I'm going to have you go out there and let's see what you got. And
yep.
Just roll the dice and see what happens.
I think Vinny Velasquez is going to start becoming a key staple in this bullpen. I don't know if they're going to push him all the way to the back end just yet, because I think Gabe Kapler wants to use him as kind of a multiple inning guy. Give me an inning or two, so that I can get to Hector Neris, because you look at this bullpen and it is just banged up at the moment. Now,
it's like decimated.
Yeah, it's, it really is. And you look at it, and, for the Phillies right now, as we're airing this, for the Phillies to be up by 2 games at this point with the amount of injuries that they've suffered, you look at it. McCutchen has been lost for a little bit. They lost Segura for a little bit. Their bullpen has been banged up. Their pitching staff. You look at the starters. I mean, you look at just Aaron Nola and what he's been doing this year. He's been struggling out of the gate so far this year. And for the Phillies to have a 2-game lead over Atlanta, a 5-game lead over the Mets, and a 7-game lead over the Washington Nationals is actually pretty good. At this stage for the Phillies.
Considering all of what, it's absolutely right.
It really is. And the Phillies, some of the Phillies relievers are starting to stir a little bit. I'm hearing some good things about Tommy Hunter, that maybe he can start a rehab stint maybe early next week. He'll go down to Florida, throw off a mound down there, and from there maybe start a rehab streak. And maybe some of the other guys aren't too far away from him. I'm waiting for an update on Adam Morgan, but Zach Eflin should be back in the rotation. That will boost him. He's been the most reliable starter out of anybody, really, this year. Yeah. So getting Eflin back into that starting rotation will be huge.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he would be scheduled for tonight.
I believe he is pitching tonight. Yep. So getting him back will be huge. And then, getting David Robertson, if they can get him to start throwing a little bit, and maybe get him back by the end of the month, that would be huge. I think.
I'll tell you, I really thought David Robertson. When they signed him, when I heard that they signed him, I really thought right away he was going to be the set closer. I mean, being that he's got the experience between the Yankees and his first stint with the Yankees, and then followed by the Chicago White Sox, I really honestly thought he would have been the set closer, but. We know we had seen at the beginning of the season what occurred. So I mean,
yep. Oh, absolutely. And so looking ahead a little bit, the Phillies they're hosting the Reds this weekend. Reds are in town, and then beginning of next week we got 3 against the Diamondbacks, and then. After that, things start getting really interesting, because when we talk next week, the Phillies will be traveling down to Atlanta for a 3-game set with the Braves, and that will be starting some division games for the Phillies. So they can make some hay, I think, with the Reds and the Diamondbacks before heading down to Atlanta next weekend. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. As far as this weekend goes, overall, I could see this being a sweep. The one little interesting look-see that will happen, at least from my standpoint, will be Sunday. That should be a rather awesome pitching matchup between Sonny Gray and Aaron Nola. I mean, both in their last 7 games, for Gray in his last 7 games, he struck out 37. And as far as Aaron Nola goes, in his last 7, he has struck out 47. And both have winning records overall in the last 7 games. Although Sonny Gray had went 2-2, I mean, his earn run average isn't all that bad. It's 3.47, and Nola pretty much is did fared out a little bit better in his last 7. He hasn't pitched that bad, I know, of late. So, but otherwise 4-1 with a 3.76 earned run average, and again, 47 strikeouts in the last 7 games. It's not all that shabby for Aaron Nola, that is. So that matchup, I think, Sunday afternoon is going to be an interesting look-see to happen upon.
So what do you think? 3 games against the Reds, 3 games against the D-backs. What do you think the Phillies can do, Ken?
I would say a sweep against the Reds, and I would say 2 of 3 right now against the backs. I
would take that. And then we have that big series next weekend against the Atlanta Braves. If the Phillies can put just a little bit more distance between themselves and the Braves heading into this, I would love it. Final thoughts on Kimbrel and Keuchel not being a member of the Phillies, but the Phillies possibly having to beat Keuchel in the division and Kimbrel in the playoffs.
Well, in my opinion, a mental standpoint, as far as Kimbrel goes, I'm glad we didn't get him. But look,
I agree. I think the Phillies have enough in their bullpen. They just have to get the guys healthy.
Right. Keuchel, as to whether talk stalled or they hadn't happened at all, I don't know. But I think overall, as far as from a Keuchel standpoint, it's a bit of a shame in a way. But look, again, with at least with the starting pitching, Eflin's gave us quite a bit this year so far. Aaron Nola seems to be holding his own despite that rough patch that he went through at the beginning. Pavetta seems to have gotten his grip a little bit. So, overall, I think, as far as yes, it is a bit of a shame that we didn't maybe perhaps try to talk to Keuchel and his agent a little bit more. But at the same time, I think we're okay right now with what we have starters wise.
Yep.
And again, right now, overall, I think we're okay with where we're at. We can go into July with who we have right now. Once that week leading up to July 31st rolls around, I think they are going to go after someone, on the idea that we're, again, up in first place, 2 to 4 games up, just say, and and we'll take it from there.
Yep. And one final thing, want to get your prediction. The Toronto Raptors are up 2-1 over the Golden State Warriors. Do you think Golden State can rebound? They got a game here tonight, Friday night, and another game this weekend. So what do you think about the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it would be great to see Golden State rebound, but with the injury bug that's been happening with them right now, I see Toronto just going the rest of the way forward and just winning. So I have a feeling they're going to win these final 2 games, at least the next 2 games, I should say, and clinch the championship.
Gotcha. I tend to agree with you. I picked Toronto in this series. It's going to be interesting to see who comes back for the Golden State Warriors. This is an interesting series from the standpoint of usually it's the Golden State Warriors who are the healthy team and their opponents are trying to get through some injuries. This season, this championship series, points out to the Warriors fans how the other team normally feels. You know, this is the series that the Golden State Warriors are the ones that are banged up and are hurt and have to overcome injuries like their opponents usually have to.
Right. Yeah, I agree. For as much as I'd love to see Golden State really win this whole thing, I don't know. Like I said, I can't. I just unfortunately don't see them coming back.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, Ken. Love having you on the show every weekend. Once again, can you tell everybody how they can contact you on social media?
Absolutely. Facebook, it's Ken Moskowitz, parenthesis Crossing Guard Ken. On Instagram and Twitter, it's Skywarn Spotter Ken. And of course, as always, I always love being here on the broadcast as well.
All right. Can't wait to talk to you next week. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to discuss with you. So until next Friday, have a great weekend. Enjoy, and keep the kiddies safe this afternoon.
Absolutely. Will do. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
All right. And, of course, that was Skywarn Spider Ken, Crossing Guard Ken. We love talking to him every week on the show. As of right now, what we are going to do is take a brief time out, and we are going to come back, and we're going to be talking the opposite. We're going to be talking some New York sports, as we always do with Pat Ragazzo, so stay tuned for that. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Now say this out loud as you're driving around in your car.
Join Sports Skillet.
That's what it feels like.
So how do you like it?
So what is it? I'm curious.
You like it like this?
My God, do we love football.
Or like this?
I love the sport of baseball.
And what about this?
You can have a sports show without all the vicious talk.
Simple human decency.
Whatever it is that you like,
Yeah, I like chaos.
we've got it covered.
Right?
It's sports the way you like it.
My friends, you may not know this. It's got everything you want.
Local and national sports talk that's fresh, in season, and FDA approved. If it's hot, you'll find it cooking with Jeff, Jay, and Kelly. They don't just stir the pot, they add more flavor than the other guys. Get ready to dig in and taste some Sports Skillet.
Tastes good.
Remember the TV show Cheers, where everybody knows your name? Never been there. But every time I walk into Wildflowers restaurant on Pennington Circle, I feel at home and that I belong. Friday night, I headed over to Wildflowers, and even though it was packed, I easily found a seat at the bar and got cozy with 17 TVs. Baseball, golf, entertainment TV, you name it, including all NFL games. The bartender Dave suggested I order the Buffalo Wing Sampler, and you could tell he was a fervid fan. But reviews on Wildflowers Inn Restaurant Facebook page demanded I tried the garbage truck pizza, and Kelly had just arrived and promised to help me dig in. Then it came. Garbage truck pizza does not live up to its name because it smells amazing and it tastes even better. Freshly sliced peppers and pepperoni, garlic, mushrooms, mozzarella, and meatballs all baked on this incredibly crunchy and warm double crust to hold it all together perfectly. Heaven, especially with one of their 23 beers on tap. I'm a believer. Go to wildflowersinrestaurant.com for more info or just come in. They are conveniently located on the Pennington Circle, right near I-95. I promise you, they will welcome you warmly, feed you well, and perhaps soon even know your name.
We are back here on the Sports Skillet Radio Show. We thank you for joining us each and every week on our live stream. And a reminder, you can also hear portions of the show on Fox Sports Radio 920 The Jersey and SportsSkilletRadio.com every Sunday morning. Just tune in at 11 a.m. and there you go. And as always, we bring in on Friday afternoon from USA Today Sports and Fansided.com, Pat Ragazzo. Check out his work at MetsMerized.com and the Giants Wire. And please give him a follow at Ragazzo Report on Twitter. Pat, how are you doing today? Pat, do we got you? Hold on. Pat, do we got you? Pat?
Hey, can you hear me?
There you go. All right, Pat. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How's your week been?
It's been great. How has your week been?
Really great. It's gone by really fast, I have to say, and now the weather's warming up, so it's been awesome.
It is a little cloudy today. I'm kind of seeing outside, but otherwise than that, pretty good. Lots to go over in the New York sports scene. Big news that came down this week. Dallas Keuchel signing with Atlanta. Greg Kimbrell signing with the Cubs. What's your take on both those signings?
I think that the Kimbrell signing for the Cubs will help make them I think right now might make them the favorite out of the NL. It makes their bullpen a lot stronger, and he complements a really good lineup that they have there in Chicago. They're at the top of the NL Central, and from what I heard, the Mets and Dodgers had also been in on Kimbrell as well. But the difference maker was the Cubs were willing to go that third year that they offered him 3 years, $43 million.
Yeah, that's what he's been kind of campaigning for throughout this process, is that multi-year deal. And it was interesting to see a team actually acquiesce and give him, that multi-year deal.
Yeah, it was interesting, but at the same time, there's a ton of struggling bullpens in the league right now. There was a heavy free agent market for relievers this offseason, and the majority of them have struggled for the most part. So Kimbrell could have gone into any bullpen in the league, to any contender in the league, and given them a boost. And the Cubs were, really they're in on it this year, and they were willing to give him that extra year, as I feel that the Mets and Dodgers should have if they wanted him.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You think that now that the Cubs have added Kimbrell, that you think that they're the favorites in the National League over the Dodgers?
I do think so. I think that the Dodgers, their biggest acquisition in the bullpen this offseason was Joe Kelly, who's really struggled for them. They have Kenley Jansen, who's good, and who's having another strong year, and their lineup is one of the best in the league. But when it comes down to it, are they going to have enough to win the NL again this year? And I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I right now I'd like the Cubs and the Dodgers in the NLCS, and I think that it would be pretty interesting.
It would be. I completely agree with you there. You had an interesting tweet last night that Mickey Callaway will once again be apologizing to the team. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, he is a guy, the team has won a couple games the last 2 days, but they should have swept the San Francisco Giants. He made the decision to pull Noah Syndergaard in the seventh inning of the first game the other night, and came back to bite him as Seth Lugo gave up the tying run, and then his bullpen ultimately gave up 6 runs in extra innings. Callaway just is a guy who, he doesn't really learn from his mistakes, unfortunately, and in the rubber game of the series yesterday, the Mets came out victorious, but in the seventh inning they had runners on second and third and 1 out, and he pinch hit for his best hitter, Dom Smith, with J.D. Davis to face the lefty. And I believe that, it was just another scenario of over-managing, and then Davis wound up grounding out into an inning-ending double play.
Yeah, he did. And so where do you think the Mets go at this point? I keep asking you this every week just to get your temperature on it. think the Mets are still buyers at the trade deadline, or do you think they start selling? What's your temperature of the team?
Well, the Mets have a rough stretch over the next 6 series in 19 games. They face the Colorado Rockies starting tonight, then the Yankees. Then after the Yankee series, they face the Cardinals, Braves, and then finish that up with 2 4-game sets against the Chicago Cubs and Philadelphia Phillies. So they really have their work cut out for them over these next 3 weeks. They got 19 games in 20 days, and I think this stretch will probably make or break them this season and determine whether they're going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline.
Very true. And Callaway's usage of the bullpen, you mentioned that as well, is going to be paramount, keeping those relievers healthy and available during this tough stretch for the team.
Yes, it is, and he needs to gain more trust in his bottom 4 guys in the bullpen because as it's going right now, the top 4 have pitched every night, with the exception of Lugo, who just came off the IL recently.
That is rough.
Yes, they've certainly been taxed, and you could tell that they're fatigued at this point. Guys like Rob Gazelman, who have been dominant at times now, seem overworked and aren't getting guys out. And one interesting move that I think the Mets should look into is bringing back their former setup man Addison Reed, who was just recently released a couple weeks ago. I think they should take a flyer on him.
That might be interesting. Bringing him into the equation. Do you think they will dip down? I've seen the Phillies kind of do this. Dip down to the minor league and bring up a reliever just to help out a beleaguered bullpen for a couple of games here or there.
Well, I'm sure they're going to need to, especially with this long stretch now, playing 19 to 20. They had guys like Tyler Bachelor and Daniel Zamora up while guys were injured in the bullpen. These are young guys with a lot of potential and good stuff, but they were overworked and clearly aren't ready, so they're back down in the minor leagues. Zamora actually just landed on the IL the other day in AAA, but I think that the Mets will be. They really don't have a choice; that they will have to be calling guys up and down. They're one of their top acquisitions in the offseason. Lefty reliever Justin Wilson should be on his way back from his elbow injury, so hopefully they'll be getting him back in the bullpen pretty soon.
And injuries have taken a toll on the team as well. You've got, as they have the Philadelphia Phillies, who the Mets are trying to catch. Who would you like to see come off the injured list the most? Who do you think the Mets need to get back the soonest to remain in this pennant race and maybe catch the Phillies?
Right now, it's Justin Wilson, because of how much the bullpen has struggled. They actually, heading into yesterday, the bullpen had blown 10 of 15 leads and had a 14.3 ERA. So that number obviously is a mixture of guys underachieving and overworked, and then also Mickey Callaway, not using the bullpen correctly. So I think that they could definitely use Wilson to come in and pitch like the pitcher who he is, who's a guy who strikes out a lot of batters. So
that might be the player that I would want back too. They got Robinson, Cano on the injured list as well. Do you think they need a little bit more offensive punch?
Right now, the offense has produced for the most part over the last couple of weeks. They could definitely use Cano had come off the IL the other night and re-aggravated his quad. After he didn't even play on a rehab assignment or anything. They just had brought him off, but which I normally would have no problem with, but it was evident that he wasn't even ready to start a rehab assignment at the way he was running. So I don't know, Jay. You should mention that he's on the IL. I don't know if they put him back on. He had said that he didn't think he needed to go back on, but it looks as though he definitely is not ready to be running around and playing games yet. So,
okay, yeah,
he is. I have to double check on that one, but
yeah, he is
day to
day.
Is another guy who he's been on the IL with a neck injury, and he's making progress to come back. And they need him. They desperately need him to come back and produce like the Nimmo last year, who they knew, and put up a 400 on base percentage. So.
And what I find interesting, too, that just happened recently, the Phillies signed Jay Bruce. So you can kind of look at it, a year later, essentially the Phillies and Mets swapped Jay Bruce for Aaron Altier.
Yes, they did. And Jay Bruce, since he since he got to the Phillies, he's been picking up where he left off in Seattle, hitting home runs left and right. I believe he already has 3 in his first couple games.
And your opinion of Aaron Altier?
Well, the Mets just designated him for assignment to make room for Cano, which was also short-lived. Altier hit a home run in his first game as a Met, but since then wasn't really hitting much. So
nope.
I believe he cleared waivers, so now he's down in AAA. But he's just a depth piece that could possibly help at times this season, but he's not going to be a big part of this team going forward if they're going to contend this year.
No, and he wasn't going to be part of the Phillies either, though the Phillies may be able to use him as a depth piece if they want to bring him back or, something like that, or if he, doesn't go down to the minor leagues with the Mets or what, because the Phillies are kind of banged up in the center field thing with losing McCutchen and then the Odubel Herrera situation. So the Phillies are a little bit banged up there in the outfield going forward. Want to touch on the Giants a little bit. Their new quarterback looks pretty mobile.
Yes, Daniel Jones. One thing he was not, no one questioned for him coming out of the draft was his speed and mobility. He had over 1,000 rushing yards in his career at Duke, and he ran a 4.6 40-yard dash and made a lot of plays with his feet, and that's something that the Giants haven't had at the quarterback position probably ever in their franchise history.
No, not at all. And and I think that could play well going forward into the season if he can be mobile a little bit, something that I don't think Eli Manning is at this point in his career. That might get him on the field a little bit sooner, no?
Yeah, right now he's really impressed in minicamp and OTAs. He took off on a read option in practice the other day and outran the whole defense. I know quarterbacks are wearing red jerseys right now and can't be touched, but Jones created separation and faked out the whole defense and really put his wheels on display. As for his arm, he's really shown the ability to get the ball out quick and make snap decisions. He's learning a lot, which has really impressed everyone around the Giants coaching staff, and he's shown off his deep ball accuracy, which is something also that he was knocked about in college, and it was really undersold, and it looks a lot better than what we were told. That's for sure.
And how about those New York Jets? Can't sign the vice president of the Philadelphia Eagles. They're squabbling over money. Could you believe that?
Yes, that's what I heard. Is now Douglas and Gates are close from when they were both with the Chicago Bears, which makes it seemingly a perfect fit. You want your head coach and your GM to be two guys, who are. It's not just some arranged marriage like the Jets did with McCagnon and Gase, and how the Jets have done things over the last couple of years when making the head coach and general manager change, in separate years, that they just pair an old coach with a new GM and vice versa. So seemingly it would be a great fit because the guys do have a close relationship. But yes, the issue is right now, and why Douglas is leaning towards staying with the Eagles, is that they are in fact squabbling over money. They're about a couple of $1 billion apart in a price right now.
I just can't believe that. If you have the ability to bring in a qualified guy like Joe Douglas, who probably other teams are going to take a look at if and when they have openings in their front office, to be squabbling over a couple $1 million seems ridiculous to me. Just give Joe Douglas the money and bring him in and let him get working on things and helping the team achieve what they want to achieve. And to be squabbling over the money, if I was Joe Douglas, I would take a longer, harder look at the New York Jets and really question if I want to go there. I know it's an opening. I know it's a GM opening, and he'd be able to run the team the way he would want to run it, but he's going to be looked at for other openings that shake out over the next few years. He's going to be brought in. So if I was Joe Douglas, I might just take my name out of the equation altogether, because if they're squabbling over my salary, if I have to go to the owner and say to the owner, hey, I've got this great talent, I want to bring him in, am I going to have the same difficulty in signing a player that they're giving me over my salary? To me, I might just take my name out of the equation altogether.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good start, and that is why he's leaning towards staying with the Eagles. But at the same time, like you said, the Jets, if they really want him and he's their guy, they shouldn't be arguing over money. That they should just give him what he wants. I have a feeling that, and this is my opinion, that I feel like maybe Douglas had set a price due to the fact that what he's helped build with Howie Roseman over with the Eagles, a Super Bowl team and consistent contender, and the Jets are kind of not undervaluing it because he was only the assistant to Howie, and they're saying, oh, well, you're not proven as a general manager, or you're not really proven to be able to build a team by yourself, like they're not sure how much is Howie and how much is Joe. So I feel like that's something that the Jets are using against him to try and knock the price down, and that's definitely something that could cause a rift in negotiations.
Oh, absolutely. But if you follow the Eagles at all, basically Howie Roseman has always been known as being able to make some trades, talk to the other GMs in the league, do some work with the salary cap, kind of massage it. Basically, if the Eagles want a player, Howie Roseman will massage the salary cap somehow, some way to get that player signed, and maneuver around in the draft, trade out, trade down, get more draft picks. But when it comes to player analysis and evaluating players, most of the Eagles fans, most of the people outside of the Eagles believe that it has been primarily Joe Douglas who's been doing that. So if I was the Jets, I would just give him the money. There's no salary cap for front office people. Just give it to him, bring him in, and sign him.
I agree with you, Jay.
Yep.
They should get it done. And
absolutely.
And if it's not Joe Douglas, I'm hearing it might be Champ Kelly from the Bears. He's the assistant. He's the assistant of scouting over at the Bears, and it may be him, but I think it'd be a mistake if they let Douglas go.
Oh, I completely agree, and I'm sure the Jets fans would be beside themselves if they didn't sign Joe Douglas just because of money. I'm sure the Jets fans would be outraged.
Absolutely.
Without question. I think it would be a huge mistake for the Jets to do that. Another ball drop late last night. Carson Wentz signed a multi-year deal with the Eagles. So how do you think that will shape things up for the Giants and the division?
Well, it just means that Wentz is here, to stay for a while. He's the Eagles guy, as we all knew. The only question is his durability. He hasn't been able to stay healthy the last 2 years, which is kind of, at least to me, I was very surprised by the timing of this deal. I thought that they were at least going to let him play this season and see if he could stay healthy for a full year. But, there's no questioning his ability. The kid has definitely got it, to be a franchise quarterback and an elite talent. It's just his durability is the only question. Now, were you surprised by this deal, the timing of it?
Somewhat. I thought it might be taking a little bit longer, but I think the Eagles wanted some cost certainty going forward. Malcolm Jenkins has been kind of discontented with his current contract. He would like a raise, so this gives the Eagles some cost certainty in maybe redesigning Malcolm Jenkins' contract. I think what's interesting, too, is this kind of moves the needle a little bit with the Dallas Cowboys in the division, because they not only have to sign Ezekiel Elliott, but they also have to sign Dak Prescott. And if you're Dak Prescott and you're Dak Prescott's agent, maybe now you can go to the Dallas Cowboys and say, hey, Carson, who hasn't won a playoff game as of yet, got this amount of money. guess what, guys? You guys got to pony up, and we want to start around where Carson Wentz is, if not at Carson Wentz's number, and go from there. And that could have some salary cap effects with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, it definitely will. It definitely has negative implications now on the Cowboys that the Eagles set the bar with Wentz, who Wentz is a lot more talented than Dak Prescott, even though he doesn't have the accolations, at least in the playoffs, because he's been injured. I truly feel, though, that if he didn't get injured, the Eagles still would have won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Well, they obviously had a better chance too to win the Super Bowl if he stayed healthy over Foles, and so I think that's just the way that the business goes. That Dak's going to be asking for at least probably $30 million a season, which is, in my opinion, I don't feel that he's worth that or even close to that number. But that's just the way the game's going right now with quarterbacks and the market for them.
I completely agree. So over the course, let's circle back, talk a little bit about the Mets and what they have coming up. Over the course of the next week, what do you think the Mets' record is going to be?
Well, over the next 3 weeks, with these 19 games against some tough teams and the contenders, I think the Mets need to at least go 10-9 to stay afloat. But it's really, really going to be tough. And the bullpen is going to have to step up, and find their rhythm and at least be able to be serviceable. And they're going to need some big games out of the starters, like obviously Jason Vargas gave you a complete game shutout.
He's been hot lately
against the Giants, and
he's been hot lately.
Continue that success. Well, obviously not. You can't expect him to pitch another complete game shutout, but you gotta. He has the third best ERA for starting pitchers in the league since April 14th, and if the rotation continues to pitch well and deep into games, and the bullpen has to be used as less as possible, then I feel like the Mets, can have a successful streak here.
I think so too. It's going to be interesting coming down the line. Pat, got to get your prediction for the NBA Finals. Got a game tonight, Friday night. Who do you think takes it, and do you think the Golden State Warriors can rebound and maybe take the series?
I think that if Kevin Durant doesn't come back, I feel that the Raptors will win in 7 games. I think that the Raptors win tonight to go up 3-1, and then the Warriors are gonna make it interesting after that. But I do feel that if Durant doesn't come back, he's already been ruled out tonight, then I don't think that the Warriors are going to win. This Raptors team is playing too well, and they've gotten a lot of contributions, not only from their star player Kawhi Leonard, but from guys like Fred VanVleet and Siakam and Kyle Lowry. So, this Raptors team is very, very strong right now.
Absolutely it is. We've been talking to Pat Ragazzo from USA Today Sports and Fansided.com. Pat, can you let everybody know what you got coming up this week?
Well, this week the Giants finish up OTAs. They just finished up their mandatory minicamp, and now OTAs are ending next week, so we're going to be covering that. And then football is going to be done until training camp in the end of July, which is funny that we're already talking about that. It's coming up fast, and lots going on with the Mets and their tough stretch. And the Subway Series starts Monday for a 2-game set for Mets-Yankees at Yankee Stadium.
And one last question for you. You mentioned this tough stretch with the New York Mets. I may ask you this again next week, but as the Mets are entering this very tough stretch, do you think this could determine the fate of their manager?
Yes, I do. I think that if the Mets come out and flounder against these teams and don't at least go 500 over these next 3 weeks, then I think that if they're out of contention by the end of June, then I feel like Mickey Callaway's gone. Because despite them staying afloat and still winning some games here and there and hovering around 500, this team's really underachieving with the talent level they have. And, the managers made poor moves that have lost them games.
And just off the top of your head, is there anybody you would like, if the Mets do flounder over this stretch, is there any name off the top of your head that Mets fans can kind of look at to replace their manager?
Well, right now, for this season, at least in the short term, they're not going to be looking to go outside the organization. The favorites to take over, obviously, would be bench coach Jim Riggleman, who has a lot of managerial experience, and quality control coach Luis Rojas, who's looked at as a hot candidate to be a manager around this league pretty soon. So one of those two guys. My preference would be Luis Rojas, to see what he has, because we kind of know what Riggleman has. He's managed with the Nationals, and was kind of underwhelming in his time there. So, I feel like it'll has to be either Rojas or Riggleman. I don't see them going after an outside source until after the season, and maybe someone like Joe Girardi.
Gotcha. Pat, can't wait to talk to you again next week. We want to encourage everybody to give you a follow at Ragazzo Report on Twitter. Pat, have an awesome weekend, and again, can't wait to talk to you again next Friday.
You too, Jay. Thanks. Always great talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Always love talking to you, Pat. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.
You too. And, of course, that was Pat Ragazzo. Right now, what we are going to do is listen to Twish. It's This Week in Sports History. It's a recap of everything that has gone on this week in history, in the history of sports. It's a great segment that we have here. So here it is, This Week in Sports History, coming up right now.
Remember the TV show Cheers, where everybody knows your name? Never been there. But every time I walk into Wildflowers restaurant on Pennington Circle, I feel at home and that I belong. Friday night, I headed over to Wildflowers, and even though it was packed, I easily found a seat at the bar and got cozy with 17 TVs. Baseball, golf, entertainment TV, you name it, including all NFL games. The bartender Dave suggested I order the Buffalo Wing Sampler, and you could tell he was a fervent fan. But reviews on Wildflowers Inn Restaurant Facebook page demanded I tried the garbage truck pizza, and Kelly had just arrived and promised to help me dig in. Then it came. Garbage truck pizza does not live up to its name because it smells amazing and it tastes even better. Freshly sliced peppers and pepperoni, garlic, mushrooms, mozzarella, and meatballs all baked on this incredibly crunchy and warm double crust to hold it all together perfectly. Heaven, especially with one of their 23 beers on tap. I'm a believer. Go to wildflowersinrestaurant.com for more info or just come in. They are conveniently located on the Pennington Circle, right near I-95. I promise you, they will welcome you warmly, feed you well, and perhaps soon even know your name.
Welcome to This Week in Sports History, sponsored by Wildflowers Restaurant. I am Jeff Sellner. Let's dive right into the history books. On June 3rd in 1888, Casey at the Bat was published in the San Francisco Examiner. The poem is about a baseball team from the fictional town of Mudville. The home team is trailing by 2 runs in the last inning. Both the team and its fans, a crowd of 5,000, believe they can win if their star player Casey gets to bat. However, he is scheduled to be the 5th batter of the inning. The first 2 batters fail to get on base. The next 2 batters both get hits. Casey comes to bat, takes the first two pitches, both called strikes, and the overconfident Casey strikes out swinging, ending the game and sending the crowd home unhappy. On June 4th, 1968, Don Drysdale, a starting pitcher for the LA Dodgers, blanked the Pirates 5-0, allowing just 3 hits while striking out 8 batters. The victory was Drysdale's 6th shutout in a row and gave him 54 straight scoreless innings. The 6th straight shutout broke the mark of 5 held by Doc White of the 1904 White Sox. On June 5th, in 1957, New York narcotics investigator Dr. Herbert Berger urges the American Medical Association to investigate the use of stimulating drugs by athletes. On June 6th, in 2010, Rafael Nadal won the French Open of Tennis for the 5th time, defeating Robin Soderling in straight sets 6-4, 6-2, 6-4. Nadal, who turned pro in 2001, has won 16 Grand Slam titles to date, including 10 French Opens. On June 7th, in 1983, Steve Carlton of the Philadelphia Phillies struck out Lonnie Smith for his 3,522nd career strikeout to pass Nolan Ryan as the all-time strikeout leader. Carlton would end his career with 4,136 strikeouts. Nolan Ryan would regain the title as the all-time strikeout leader with 5,714. As impressive as Steve Carlton's strikeouts was, just as impressive was his win-loss record of 329 and 244 losses. Carlton was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1994. On June 8th, in 1989, the Pittsburgh Pirates scored 10 runs in the first inning in a game against the Philadelphia Phillies at Veterans Stadium. With 18,511 fans on hand, the Phillies staged an epic comeback, winning the game 15-11 as Von Hayes and Steve Jeltz each hit 2 home runs. During the game, Pirates broadcaster and former pitcher Jim Rooker offhandedly told his radio audience that if the Pirates blew that 10-run lead, he would walk back to Pittsburgh. A few months later, over a 13-day stretch, Rooker covered 320 miles on foot through the Pennsylvania countryside. The media was all over Jim Rooker's unintentional walk that ended on October 17th at Three Rivers Stadium. Radio, TV, and newspapers hyped the walk and provided updates. On June 9th in 1973, Secretariat won the Belmont Stakes to become the first Triple Crown winner since Citation in 1948. Secretariat ran the mile and a half in 2 minutes 24 seconds, a world record many believe will never be broken. With the nickname Big Red, Secretariat is regarded as one of the greatest racehorses of all time, winning 16 of 21 races. Thank you for listening to This Week in Sports History, sponsored by Wildflowers Restaurant. I am Jeff Selner.
You're listening to the Sports Skillet Radio Show, cooking up all the hot takes. Jump in and join us at 609-919-9200. Download our app at sportsskilletradio.com. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube by searching for Sports Skillet. And remember to show us some love. Like, follow, and share.
And we are back here on the Sports Skillet live stream every Friday afternoon, emanating from the CSB studios in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Thank you for joining us. And as we wrap up, as we do every week, we start talking about pro wrestling. We give you some wrestling talk here on the live stream. And right now we have Super Showdown going on. Seth Rollins has defeated Baron Corbin, so that match is history. We did have Brock Lesnar come out with Paul Heyman, but did not cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase. Seth Rollins gave Brock Lesnar a beatdown of epic proportions, so right now you have that going on, Super Showdown over in the Mideast. Something to pay attention to. Glad to see Seth Rollins ended up hanging on to the briefcase. or Seth Rollins ended up retaining his title. Brock Lesnar didn't cash it in, so that's going to be apparently an ongoing storyline with the WWE. You also have AEW. Again, their momentum is still going strong. A lot of people feel that there could be some more defections coming up from the WWE, and we want to hear from you too. Who do you think could defect from the WWE over to AEW? Could it be Sasha Banks? She hasn't been seen in quite some time. Apparently has some issues with the WWE. Could Sasha Banks be just waiting out her contract and going over to AEW? Wouldn't it be awesome if CM Punk, in a poke to the WWE, ended up signing a contract with AEW? Again, he's now an announcer with MMA or with that group, and he's lost his first 2 bouts, so his career over there inside the octagon, it hasn't been going quite as well as he would have hoped. Maybe he decides to give AEW a chance because they are offering these guys a lot of creative freedom. There's a lot of positive vibes, a lot of positive energy going on with AEW. I like to see it. They had an awesome pay-per-view recently, and just the vibes coming off that. They have a contract with TNT to air their program coming up this fall. So they're a federation that a group that you have to start paying attention to. If you're WWE, you have to kick these writers in the butt. You have to have compelling storylines. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again this week. The storylines, the vignettes, you have to put together 2 really good shows. And if I'm Fox and I've just paid to air one of your programs coming up on my station, and I'm hearing more positivity coming from AEW, more fans are talking about AEW and the wrestlers that may be going over there, the storylines that may be going on, the matches that may be going on over there, and dumping on the WWE, that is a huge concern for me if I'm Fox. Yeah, I know the WWE is doing some fun things. You have the 24/7 title, and they're using that for their social media accounts and everything like that. But it's just right now the positive vibes coming from the WWE are few and far between. The shows are kind of maybe they'll do 1 or 2 really good things. When are we going to see Bray Wyatt in a wrestling ring and no longer on these vignettes? I like them. They're cool. They're intriguing a little bit. They're fun. But I want to see Bray Wyatt in an arena. I want to see where this has been building to. I want to see Bray Wyatt come out. When are we going to see that? Also today you have The Undertaker versus Bill Goldberg. This is coming way too late. This should have happened years and years ago when both of them were younger, in their primes. It would have been must-see TV. Now it's going to be maybe about a 5-minute match, maybe 10 if you're lucky. Does anybody even care who goes over in this match? Who wins? Should Goldberg win? Is Goldberg going to be doing more with the WWE? If not, do you have The Undertaker win and bury Goldberg? Is this going to be an ongoing thing? Will they be doing something at SummerSlam, one of their biggest cards of the summer, in a couple of months? Does anybody really, as I said, does anybody really care about it? I don't know. I think it's going to be worth checking out, but for the sentimentality of it, when you had a couple of years ago, when you had Triple H go up against Sting at WrestleMania, there's the nostalgia factor of it, but is this going to mean anything long term? Is The Undertaker going to start wrestling a little bit more? Not a lot, but maybe on the major cards, or is Goldberg going to do a little bit more? We have to wait and see what transpires with that. Some other okay matches on the card in the Middle East today, but you know what? That is what it is. I'm going to be checking out the card. I'm going to go to Citizens Bank Park. We'll be down there tonight watching the Phillies take on the Cincinnati Reds. I would expect the Phillies to at least take 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati this weekend. I would hope that they do. Maybe they can extend their lead over the Atlanta Braves, put some distance between them, because, like I said, come the end of the month, Phillies are going to be going through the division, and it's going to be incumbent for them to have a little bit of a cushion so that any games they lose doesn't hurt them too much overall. I'd also like to see them get at least Tommy Hunter back soon. Maybe have him do a couple of rehab stints this coming week. If he can move around, do that, and come back and get him back and healthy and in the bullpen for when the Phillies go through this rough stretch at the end of the month, and get the bullpen some health. Sir Anthony Dominguez, still waiting for word on him. Hopefully, maybe with just a couple of days off, maybe it wasn't as bad as everybody made it out to be, and he can come back and pitch maybe tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday out of the bullpen. Maybe not too bad, where he has to go on the 10-day injured list. Crossing our fingers there for Sir Anthony. But the Phillies do need to get some of these bullpen pieces back, and if they do, they will be fine. No need to panic. I think Gabe Kapler is turning out to be a good manager. We can discuss that next week here on the Sports Skillet live stream. And as we do wrap up, I just want to encourage everybody to come out Monday, July the 22nd to Cherry Valley Country Club. We are having our annual golf outing that day, and it is, and I kid you not, it is, where's my finger? It is the best golf outing going. Nobody will give you what we can give you. You will get, just for walking in the door, you will get a gift certificate for a golf club. No other, how many other golf outings, just for walking in the door, we'll give you that. We will allow you to go swimming after the event for an extra $15. After the event, you come off, you're you're sweaty, we will have 2 fabulous buffets. One buffet before you go, one after. Boom, there you go for the buffet, and you will have that. Monday, July 22nd is the golf outing. Just go to sportsskilletradio.com, click on the link. It's there. Commemorative photo, prizes galore. You get to golf at the 2016 Club of the Year. You get a chance to win a trip to Trump National in Bedminster. You can win that. We're going to be raffling that off. Tons of prizes. We're going to have the ball drop. Our first ever doing this, so you want to be part of that. People are going to be posting that all over social media, so you want to be a part of that. You want to be the one posting that. You don't want to see your friends, your colleagues, whatever, posting video of the helicopter ball drop on social media. You want to be a part of it. You want to be there. Monday, July 22nd, Cherry Valley Country Club, sportsskilletradio.com. Click on the link. Sign up today. We want to see you there. It's going to be fun. Trust us on that. It's going to be a must-see event to be at. 2 buffets, lunch and breakfast. You'll get a complimentary photo of your group to take home. It's just going to be amazing. You don't want to miss out on it. sportsskilletradio.com is where you have to go to click on the link, and we want to see you there. And with that, we will wrap up our show for this week. We enjoyed having you as a part of it. And until next week, have a great weekend, everybody. And hopefully your team does well, and we will enjoy watching the NBA playoffs. We'll enjoy watching some Major League Baseball, Phillies, Mets in action, as well as probably your team as well. So hopefully your team wins this week, and we will be back again next week.
Now say this out loud as you're driving around in your car.
Join Sports Skillet.
Just what it feels like.
So how do you like it?
So what is it? I'm curious.
You like it like this?
My God, do we love football.
Or like this?
I love the sport of baseball.
And what about this?
You can have a sports show without all the vicious talk.
Simple human decency.
Whatever it is that you like.
Yeah, I like chaos.
We've got it covered.
Right?
It's sports the way you like it.
My friends, you may not know this. It's got everything you want.
Local and national sports talk that's fresh, in season, and FDA approved. If it's hot, you'll find it cooking with Jeff, Jay, and Kelly. They don't just stir the pot, they add more flavor than the other guys. Get ready to dig in and taste some Sports Skillet.
Tastes good.
Right now.